Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in a million kalpas. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize the Tathagata's true meaning. We have given 3 talks on the 12 links. We are finally at a point where we can explain this line in the Heart Sutra. The line is, no ignorance or ending of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death or ending of aging and death. So we have talked about how the 12 links describe the samsara cycle. So this flow from ignorance to intentional action to conscious and so forth, all the way to aging and death and repeating. This is the samsaric flow. This is how we come to be trapped in this endless birth and death cycle. Now, in order to free ourselves from samsara, that is to attain nirvana, which means we want to end the suffering of endless birth and rebirth. So that means we need to end aging and death. In order to end aging and death, we need to go back and end birth. So when we talk about ending of aging and death in Buddhism, we are not talking about, right now I'm born, what kind of practice, what kind of cultivation I can do in order to live forever. Yeah, like becoming immortal. No, there's no such thing as an immortal, which you have this body and you somehow become, you never die. That is not possible. We're not talking about science fiction or Marvel comics. So, in order to end aging and death, we need to end the previous link, which is birth. In other words, we need to stop the process of being reborn. But what does that mean, to end the process of being reborn? And why do we keep on taking rebirth? Well, that's because of karma, right? And so we need to end the kind of karma that we create. So that means we need to end being. And being comes from, the karma we create come from grasping, and grasping comes from craving. So it's the mental state of ignorance that we are in that created the karma that in turn created birth and death. So we need to end the grasping and we need to end the craving. In other words, we go all the way back to end ignorance. So this reverse flow is what will help us attain nirvana. By destroying ignorance, we will not ever create the kind of karma that will lead us to birth and death. That is the correct way of going about this. So, the traditional Buddhist view of the 12 links is that mundane beings are trapped in the 12 link cycle. So there's ignorance and so forth up to aging and death. But the holy ones, the arhats, the advanced bodhisattvas, the Buddhas, the particular Buddhas, they have achieved the ending of ignorance and so forth up to the ending of aging and death. So you need to first understand the 12 links and then understand the meaning of the 12 links. And so to attain nirvana means we need to end ignorance and so forth, all the way up to the ending of aging and death. That is the traditional practice. That is the Buddhist practice. But this is not what the Heart Sutra says, though. The Heart Sutra, which presents the Prajna view of the 12 nidanas, the 12 links. What does it say? Well, it says no ignorance or ending of ignorance and so forth up to no aging and death or ending of aging and death. Now we need to unpack the sentence into two sentences. One is the forward flow, the samsara flow, ignorance and so forth up to aging and death. But the Heart Sutra says no ignorance. There is no ignorance, and no active intentional action, no consciousness, and so forth up to no aging and death. And the second sentence says no ending of ignorance and so forth up to no ending of aging and death. So both the forward flow, the samsara flow, and the liberation flow are negated. Heart Sutra says no to all of this. So that is confusing. Why no ignorance and so forth? Well, let us look at it one by one. Because ignorance is empty. That's why the Heart Sutra says there's no ignorance. Now, if ignorance is empty and there's no ignorance, of course there's no need for ending of ignorance. So, no ending of ignorance. But why is ignorance empty? And if ignorance is empty, then ignorance leads to intentional action, leads to consciousness, leads to so and so forth. Then intentional action is also empty. Because there's no ignorance, then there's no intentional action, and there's no consciousness, and so forth. That's why all of them are empty. So we need to first understand why ignorance is empty. Well, there are several things based on what we already learned. Let's figure this out. What is ignorance? Ignorance is when we are unclear about the truth. We're unclear about ourselves. We misunderstand ourselves. Okay? But when we recognize that we have ignorance, we recognize, oh, what I think of as I is not the real I. When I begin to recognize that this is a misunderstanding, this is an ignorance, then we are already beginning to awaken. So, it is actually ignorance that lead us to enlightenment. So don't look at ignorance as a bad thing, yeah? Well, it is a bad thing if we don't know it is ignorance, if we don't know what we don't know. But if we begin to know what we don't know, then we are already beginning to awaken ourselves. Okay, that is the first step toward enlightenment. So the ignorance now becomes a trigger for enlightenment. When you see it that way, then it's not a bad thing, is it? Well, it's whether it's good or bad, it is here. We do have ignorance. But when we recognize it, it is a trigger to our enlightenment, then we are already changing the nature of ignorance. Those people who are drowning in ignorance and refuse to recognize it, then they will suffer forever. So ignorance is terrible. But those who recognize, hey, this is not right, something is wrong. It's like the character in the movie Matrix, Neo, when he recognizes, wait, there's something wrong about my life. He begins to wonder. Then we are beginning the path to awakening. For those of us who recognize that there is ignorance, ignorance is good. The nature of ignorance changes. So ignorance is empty. Okay, that is one way to look at it. So we need to, nevertheless, even though we recognize this is ignorance, we need to penetrate it. We need to get to the bottom of things. We need to see what is true. We need to become not ignorant, right? We need to become enlightened. We want to penetrate it. It's like the blind man. Remember the blind man who touches the elephant and everybody is guessing what the elephant is like? That's ignorance. But then if one of the blind men begin to think, wait a minute, I haven't touched the whole elephant. So the blind man begin to exchange with the other blind man and then talk with each other and piece together the information. Whatever they touch, whichever part of the elephant they touch, they put it together. And finally they get a much closer picture about what the elephant is. So in this case, the blind man has a good picture of what the elephant is like. Even though he is still blind, he has the knowledge. It's like us. We learn the Dharma. We learn the knowledge. And then we get closer and closer to the reality, to the truth. And then, let's say one day, the blind man is healed. He opens his eyes and sees the elephant directly. That is us. When we have the right knowledge, the right understanding, the right view, then we practice, and then moment by moment we stay in the present, we are mindful, and then one day we will directly experience the emptiness of our phenomena and the emptiness of the self. It becomes a direct experience. That's like the blind man opening the eyes and see the elephant for real. Okay, so that's penetrating the ignorance. Now, once we are truly awakened, our ignorance is gone. Now, when the ignorance is gone, is destroyed, we realize, okay, that was silly. Why didn't I know this? So you see, ignorance is an illusion. It's like a dream. In the dream, you thought everything was real. When you wake up from the dream, you know everything is not real. So the ignorance, once you awaken from it, it's not real. It's empty. At this point, is there a point to talk about enlightenment? There is no point. at least not for yourself. Because enlightenment is just seeing the way it is. Neither increasing, neither decreasing. You don't add anything, you don't subtract anything. It's just suchness. So at this enlightened state, ignorance and enlightenment are both empty. That's why the Heart Sutra says, no ignorance, no ending of ignorance, and so forth. Now, how is this prajna view different from traditional Buddhist view? Well, the prajna view emphasizes the elusive relative nature of ignorance and everything else. Ignorance is elusive, afflictions are elusive, greed, anger are elusive. It's not substantial, it's not real. Now, why is that important? One, think of our ignorance as real, and our obstructions, our obstacles to enlightenment is real. If we do that, then we get scared. Oh, I'm not smart enough. That's for very talented people. Some people can do it, some people can't. Because we think it's real. Right? But if we know that it's illusion, then we have hope. Everybody can destroy that illusion. Everybody can wake up from a dream. So, some people who are very talented, maybe they'll go faster. They'll reach enlightenment faster. But this is not a race. As long as I reach the end goal, that is success. And everyone can get there. Yeah, some people seem to understand the Dharma very quickly, but maybe they don't practice. We need to practice too. Okay? Maybe I don't understand so well. I can only understand the first talk, and talk number 2 and 3 I don't understand anymore. That's okay. You understand the first talk, you understand something. But now I can practice. I think about it over and over, and I practice accordingly, then I will get there one day. So it's important to realize the obstacles are not real. That gives us hope. Second point, why ignorance is elusive, is important to know that, is because as we continue in our practice, we become better, we become more knowledgeable, we understand the Dharma better. Maybe we even get to some level of samadhi. Because ignorance is real, our achievement, our progress also should not be something that we get attached to. Okay? Knowing that we're just destroying a dream, then we don't become attached to our progress. If we think that ignorance is real and then we destroy so much ignorance, then our progress is real. If our progress is real, then we get proud, we get arrogant. We reinforce the ego self, and then we are not progressing, we are regressing, going backward. Okay? So as we continue to do our spiritual practice, as we continue to meditate, at some point we may become proud of our achievement. We may become proud of our attainment, but that is detrimental. So we need to become not attached. Understanding ignorance is elusive. The ending of ignorance is elusive. We don't become attached. And number 3, we successfully empty our ego self when we understand clearly that ignorance is not real and ending of ignorance is not real. All right? So if ending of ignorance is real, we have an ego. Hey, I'm good. You are not enlightened. You are so dumb. You are so slow. That is not enlightenment. So for these reasons, we see that ignorance is empty. And so the 3 points I just talked about become very practical guidelines for our spiritual practice. We talked a lot about the knowledge, the theory, the teaching of the 12 links. Now these are practical guidelines. First of all, we all have ignorance. But because ignorance is not real, everyone can destroy. And 2, as we make progress on this path, we don't become attached. We don't become arrogant. Okay? And 3, on this path, then we will eventually destroy our ego self, discover the emptiness of the self, and that's true enlightenment. And true enlightenment is just seeing it as it is. It's just suchness. Okay? So, in conclusion to the question, how is the prajna view different from the traditional view of the 12 links? The answer is there is no difference. If you practice the traditional view correctly, you will eventually attain the prajna view. Once you destroy ignorance, you will see, if you did it correctly, it is like a dream. It is not real. And so you don't get attached to enlightenment. Nevertheless, the prajna view is important to help us get a complete understanding, help us avoid the detours on our path. Shifu have taken time to explain why ignorance is empty. What about the other 11 links? Why is intentional action empty? Why is consciousness empty? Why is aging and death empty? Why is birth empty? Well, we'll leave that as exercises for you. And Shifu do recommend that you go through this thinking exercise using what you already understand to explain soundly, reasonably, why each of the other 11 links are empty. And so, now when we go back to look at the Heart Sutra line, no ignorance or ending of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death, or ending of aging and death. You should be able to understand it. Now, okay, so that is quite deep. Let us end this talk with something practical. Something very practical. How do we actually go about doing this? Destroying ignorance. Well, the key, a simple key to this cultivation with 12 links is link number 7. Feeling. Feeling leads to craving. We have explained this briefly in the overview talk. But this is so important. So, because of who we are right now, because of past karma, we have things happening in our life every day. And we have feelings, pleasant and unpleasant feelings. The key then is, what do you do when you have those feelings? What did you used to do before you learned anything about Buddhism? What do you see that other people, most people do when they have unpleasant feelings, when they have pleasant feelings? It's craving, loathing. But we need to reverse that. We need to maintain a calm mind. clear mind. Try not to be affected by those feelings. Try not to react to those feelings immediately. Try not to react to these feelings immediately, because those will be habitual reactions, drawing from the ocean of ignorance that we already have. So, from feeling to the eighth link, which is craving, we stop there as much as we can. We stop the craving. Instead of craving for pleasure, we don't crave. We let go. We see that the pleasure is fleeting. It takes more effort than it's worth, and it's something we should not get attached to. And we don't loathe, we don't hate when it's unpleasant. Whatever people say to me, whatever people do to me, whatever happens in my life that makes me suffer more or less, I maintain a calm mind, clear mind in the present, and I change my reaction. And that is the moment you begin to alter your future. You begin to go toward enlightenment. Okay? So we change our reaction, we change our future. The third patriarch of Chinese school, Master Sun Can, his famous work, Trust in Mind, 信心明. In this work, he begins with the following lines. The supreme way is difficult only for those who pick and choose. Simply let go of love and hate. The way will fully reveal itself. So the path to enlightenment will be difficult for those of us who are always picking and choosing. I like this, I don't like this. But if we let all of that go, neither love nor hate, then our mind will be able to stay so calm and clear that we will be able to see the glorious truth. The way will reveal itself with your mind of clarity. And Shifu put a link to this translation of Trust in Mind by Zhang Tai, which we did a few years ago. And finally, the mindfulness of feeling meditation is perfect for this practice. So Shifu has been talking about mindfulness of feeling in our half-day meditation retreats, and they are available on the YouTube. So Shifu will talk in much more detail about how to do this practice, how to go from feeling to not craving. Exactly about this point. And so we practice mindfulness of feeling. That means we're cutting the link at this seventh place, feeling to craving. We sever this link. And when that is done, when it's achieved, then there's no more craving and no more grasping, no more becoming or being, and no more birth and aging and death. Okay, so that is one way we can use our knowledge of the 12 links, coupled with mindfulness of feeling meditation, to go all the way to enlightenment. Okay, let us review what we have talked about. This fourth talk on the 12 links completes this section. So we explained that the 12 links is an operational view. It explains the procedure, the process of how karma affects us from the past to the present and to the future. We also talked about the traditional view, or the fragmentary samsara perspective of the 12 links: past life, this life, future life. We also talked about the transformational perspective, the momentary view of how the 12 links works in our everyday life experiences. And we talked about how to break that cycle. And the simple way to do this, the key to sever the chain, is between feeling and craving. And the great method to do that is to use mindfulness of feeling. So Shifu recommends everyone to listen carefully to the mindfulness of feeling meditation talks in our half-day meditation retreat videos. Let us now make a dedication. May all those who are learning the Dharma with us, learning about the Heart Sutra, be freed from our ignorance, affliction, and bad karma, and the consequences of those bad karma. May every sentient being have the chance to encounter the Buddha Dharma and to take the 3 refuges and to bring forth the Bodhi resolve and to attain ultimate enlightenment.